The outlook may not be very positive, but the risk profile is much lower because the price premium has dropped substantially.
Well, what is the outlook?
I think that California will get better. I mean, clearly that the challenge with California is that we have a government that is basically not functional. But on the other hand, things always get that way. When things got really, really bad, people start stepping up again. You looked at American automobile business, back 20 some odd 30 years ago, went really, really bad. They came back strong again. And then with pension liability and all that, they went back again. But you hear about pension liability issues, healthcare reform issue, substantially more today than we ever had before. So my view is that that's what it takes in a democratic society. Things have to get really, really bad, and then suddenly people start focusing the right elements. Again, I look at it, the U.S. government clearly today are much more focusing on jobs creation than other social issue, and I'm pretty sure California will also be going in the same direction. There will be a substantial more interest in job issue than a lot of other bureaucratic barrier that will cause business not to be here. I mean, it's an evolving process. It's going to be gradual, but the focus has been changing, and I see that's happening right now, and I think it's going to come even more aggressive in the next year or two. That California will be more aggressive welcoming business. Healthy immigration for us is mainly healthy immigration from the greater, not necessarily the Greater China region, but I would say that mainly East Asia or Southeast Asia. That's very important to us, and we have always relied on that for the last 38 years now of history of East West.
How does your focus on immigration from this Asian juggernaut help the U.S.?
I think it's
in California.
Yeah, it will always be critical because in the past it's been critical. It will continue to stay critical. The reason is that there are more wealth created in China, in Hong Kong. I mean the Greater China region, and these wealth that are created, and also because of the global economy right now, there's so much more interlinked. I mean, it's very different than 30 years ago, when the immigration pattern of Chinese coming to U.S. were mainly education, students coming. I mean, like I would say they struggle maybe in their home country. They'll come to U.S., struggle to pay for tuition, and then finally get the master degree or whatever, and then they became somewhat successful in the professional field, and then they went back and connect U.S. and China. That was the what I call classic example 30, 20 years ago. Today is very different. Today is that most of them actually made it in their home country, and then with the money coming to this country and say, let's see what I can buy, or let's see what I can invest, and how I can collaborate with the U.S. business partners. So it's a different dynamic, but still, there are plenty of them. And every single day, there was another millionaire popping up somewhere in one city in China. And what U.S. still have, many people say that U.S. no longer has the U.S. it was back in the 80s or the 90s. But what U.S. still have is the education and the great sort of living environment that at this point, in the Greater China region cannot compete. At the high unemployment rate, the economy really has not got back into shape. It has not got, and then if you look at the last year, new home purchase or new car purchase, many of them were all because of the stimulus package provided by the federal government. But once the stimulus package went away, back to normal, which was no jobs, no money.
Except that nationally, the new car sales actually are picking up.
Yes,
and they're showing sort of a healthy rebound to a sort of a national rate of maybe 12 million even,
Yeah.
From the low, from 10 million, for
Mhm.
example. And also the unemployment rate nationally was ticked down from 9% to
Mhm.
8.6.
Yeah.
That was the most recent data last week. And just wondered, do you see that trend continuing?
Yes, I expect that to continue. I also expect California to get better too. It's just that California is lagging a little bit. So in that standpoint, when it's lagging, there's still a lot of people who have to pinch or no longer have free money to spend because their credit card get cut off. And then you can only have free rent in a home before foreclosure for another, let's say, altogether maybe 18 months or so, or 20 months. At some point in time, they run out of these sort of like freebies, and they have to start paying. And so I see that is still affecting consumers. I think that at this moment, there is nothing more important than job creation in the United States. I think job creation at this moment is the number one political issue in America, and because of that, it changed the dynamic. It changed the dynamic dramatically. There's always going to be outliers, who are always going to care about, not to be cruel to animals and stuff like that. There are always going to be that, in U.S., in terms of the political arena. But anybody who's thinking about election, anybody's thinking about winning an election in 2012, I think there are going to be a lot of these politicians start thinking about how do I make sure my constituents will be happy with me because of these jobs that I create. And I think that is something is going to resonate. Well, but I just think that the U.S. have not yet done a great job in terms of pulling these all together. And I think same thing for California. We have not done a great job in terms of pulling these sort of information together and make a concerted effort to how to attract overseas investment coming to us. Why I like to emphasize overseas investment again is that the rate of return that overseas investors are expecting are substantially lower than U.S. In U.S., at this moment, the people who are mainly interested in investing, either they are private equities, hedge funds, or individual entrepreneurs who have substantial liquidity. These are folks that have substantial, because they've raised a lot of money, or they personally have a lot of money that are liquid, and they want to deploy. Challenge of that is that all of these folks that have a lot of money want to deploy, they always expect that, well, you know what, if I'm buying now, I'll make sure that I have a 50% return, 100% return. There are a lot of high expectation of return. But when you come down to investor from Greater China region, many of them have social issue they're interested in. Going back to the immigration question that you asked, EB-5 program, I don't know, have you heard of the EB-5 program?
Yeah.
Yeah, right? The EB-5 program is mainly a social issue. Investment is just a sort of like it's a vehicle, but not necessarily they are expecting to make money on like a 50, 100% return, that kind of investment. They'll be happy if they don't lose money. So when they are willing to invest like that, going back to these small real estate, small business, the EB-5 program would mainly cater to the smaller one, because the EB-5 program, if you one investment group in U.S. pull in $500,000 a person from China, if you have 20 of them pull in $500,000, you have $10 million. $10 million you can buy some business, and that kind of investment are primary to the smaller business. And that kind of investment, most of the investors from China that just want a green card. They just want a green card. They don't want you to lose that money, but it's not like they want 15, 20% return.
Historically, historically being over the past several decades at least, business has generally been welcoming to immigrants and has perceived immigrants as a huge benefit to American business. Lately, the political situation has become more complicated, and where you would have thought, for example, Republicans who traditionally have been aligned with business would be wholeheartedly supporting, favorable immigration policies. Do you see that breaking up? Do you see that getting better? I mean, one interesting example, dichotomy, is you've got Arizona, a neighbor of California, taking one approach, and you've got Utah taking a very different approach.
Yes.
Utah is generally pro-immigration. The business community wants to figure out a way to work with immigrants. Arizona seems to have a much more different approach. What's your sense of where this is going?
The immigration issue, again, you said you got different kind of immigration issues. One is that illegal immigrants coming to the United States that create a perception to the legal or U.S.-born citizens that they're taking away jobs or they're creating a lot of social costs like healthcare, education, etc., etc. That sentiment clearly is there. I think it becomes much more prevalent today because of unemployment, because of depressed economy, and that's just a given. But then you have the other kind of immigration, which I just talked about, this EB-5 program, when you have, immigrants coming in and say $500,000 to you, play with it. If you give me back $500,000 5 years from now, I'm really happy. And then they're coming in, buying homes, buying furniture, sending the kids to education, paying for everything. That's a little bit different. But I think that from a political point of view, it's different because politicians sometimes mix them all up, just use immigration as but one big word and create a negative connotation to it. And obviously, a lot of U.S. citizens, voters, cannot really see much difference. It's no different than, this national security issue about China. If you look at 2010 election, I think there were at least 30 some odd commercials that come out that are using China as the punching bag, in terms of getting votes.
Well, let's come back to your point, which is you've said several times now, jobs is the most important political issue.
Yep.
You've said that in the rebound that's underway, investment from overseas has been critical. So how important is immigration in the context of investment and creating jobs?
Yeah, I think that it's absolutely important because if we continue to have people that are willing to invest in this, you got two-level immigrants from Asia. One is that those who actually have created substantial wealth in their home country and wanted to actually call U.S. their permanent homes because they aspire the U.S. living lifestyle. Those people, when they come here, they're not going to sit around and do nothing, and they will want to create business here, which will create jobs. The second kind will be if we continue to have immigration policy that allows successful professional or successful or well-educated students to convert from an F1 student visa to a working permit, from a working permit to a green card, from a green card to a U.S. citizen, will create jobs. I personally myself, I was an F1 visa. I went from an F1 visa to a work permit, from a work permit to a green card, and then to a U.S. citizen. And I thought I created quite a few jobs. And so those are kind of things that I really feel is definitely important.
If you go back and remember what you went through and the whole process and the political situation, what was different then than now? Was it the same?
I think that the process are exactly identical. It's not any different, other than the fact that, for example, banks that receive TARP, which most of the healthy banks were forced down the throat in terms of TARP, all of them were not allowed to hire any F1 students to convert them to a work permit, and that was very interesting in a way that it was clearly unnecessary, but I think it's a very ill-advised type of policy.
Thank God it was paid off fast,
yeah,
right?
Exactly. But it was one of those. I looked at the immigration law was the same, but it's consistently not productive. Let's put it that way. I looked at Australia and Canada. They've been extremely aggressive to go after see, Australia and Canada have no comparison. I mean, have absolutely no comparison when it comes to the university brand premium that U.S. has. So every, I would say, aspiring Asian high school student want to come to U.S. as a first choice, but most of them would pick Canada and Australia because the path for ultimate immigration is so much easier, and it's so much more positive in terms of the welcoming mat versus U.S. That's what I talked about, the transparency. That the Chinese investor, why did they say, you know what, there's Africa, there's Europe, there's Australia, there's New Zealand, why the heck I want to bother with the United States? Because they said, we cannot figure out the transparency because they never know what's going to happen. Until you see a pattern of consistent behavior, then you bet the investment will come. I'm pretty sure the Chinese financial institution would be extremely interested in investing in the United States if the transparency is a given.
Would that, if they are allowed to invest in the U.S., is that a positive from your standpoint, or does that represent more competition? I mean, you are the bridge.
Both, because clearly when they come in will be a competition because they have a big brand name from China. You know, it's going to be I mean, they have enormous amount of capital. They can open branches all over California and Nevada in 90 days. You know, that I cannot do, right? So that's a competition. But the positive thing is that the more they come, they will bring in the business with them. See, they will bring the business with them. When these businesses coming in, and then they get used to connecting with the American. They come here not to just hang around in Chinatown. They come here to invest in America. They come here to collaborate with U.S. partners. Now we, East West, will play a role because we are much better connected than any of these Chinese banks from China. They are not connected. So they may have the capital, they're not connected. So that's why it's a pro and con. I never worry about competition because we always play a different